Oh, no, I was just going to tell you that everybody here, the business community is now a little bit worried on the trade side of things now that the president has threatened to shut the U.S.-Mexican border. It was a big topic of conversation here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I did catch up with National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow. He was here to give a speech and asked him how he was thinking about the economic fallout. He actually is thinking about solutions. Listen.
We're watching it and looking for ways to allow the freight passage. Some people call it truck roads. And there are ways you can do that, which would ameliorate the breakdown in supply chains. I mean, the president's positions on border security are well known. I support them fully. The numbers, 100,000 immigrants every month, is crazy. The question is, can we deal with that and not have any economic damage? And I think the answer is we can. And people are looking at different options, particularly if you can keep those freight lanes, the truck lanes open. I mean, that's probably the nub of it.
What about the workers? I mean, hundreds of thousands of people coming over here legally to work, and not to mention the tourists.
Yeah, well, that may be difficult. I don't want to comment on it because we're planning right now to try to, what you want to do is stop the emergency and the breakdown, and you want to try to limit whatever harm that does. It's a very difficult task. I think it's doable. And I don't know where the president will make a final decision on these things. He hasn't yet. So we're looking at all those options.
I imagine you've been in touch with business. Here at the Chamber of Commerce, they've been pretty outspoken on the need to reduce any economic fallout around this issue.
Well, they're right. I agree with that.
Larry Kudlow there really saying that he is looking at options to mitigate the economic damage if the president were to shut the border, including keeping those truck lanes open to get freight keeping across the border so that supply chains in, for instance, auto manufacturing are not disrupted. Now, he agrees with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Earlier, we talked to the president of the chamber, Tom Donohue, representing more than 3 million American businesses, about his concerns around shutting down the border and the business and economic damage. Listen.
Surely we don't want to shut down the people that come to the United States every day to work here, cross the border that we need. We don't want to shut down the trade that allows us to make automobiles and related products between the two countries. We don't want to shut down the movement of tourists. But the president has a legitimate concern about these migrations of people.
So clearly the concerns for business around the border are just the latest in a flare-up of trade concerns. And that really was the overarching theme here today. Slower global growth. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde spoke earlier, indicated that she's going to take down her forecast for growth next week. And guys, I'll share more of what she said later in the show. But trade was the major risk factor that the IMF is citing, a man-made problem, she called, in terms of its weight on economic growth.
Yeah, and Sarah, I wonder how much the administration is playing with fire, so to speak, on that issue for a group of folks who are already worried about where the economy is heading, right? This is the president's top economic guy, the same person who was arguing for an immediate 50 basis point cut on Friday now has to sort of balance, if you do shut the border with Mexico, what the economic impact is going to be, even though he told you he thinks they can be okay.
He thinks they can be okay, and he said his word was he's playing with options, or at least looking into options to try to make the economic fallout less bad. That is the disruption of the supply chains. But you heard Kudlow. He didn't really have a solution there when it came to the workers crossing the border or the tourists, which is another important source of economic activity. By the way, since you brought up, Scott, the rate cut, of course, I pressed him on that issue. He said he stands by his comments, but he did say he was misquoted as saying that the economy immediately needs a rate cut. He said he didn't say immediately. He didn't want to make it any kind of emergency or anything like that. He said he just wants to protect the economic recovery. And he also, I might add, Scott, said very sort of pointedly, he believes in the independence of the Federal Reserve, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and he's just voicing his opinion and the president's opinion, and want to make that very clear, that he wasn't exactly looking like he was bossing the Fed around.
Words matter, though, right? When they come from the president of the United States and the top economic person in the White House, words have a little more meaning than the average person, suggesting that the Fed might want to cut interest rates sometime, maybe not immediately, but in the near future, just in case. Sarah, thanks.
Correct. And to that point, Scott, Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF, I asked her this morning, do you think that the Fed should cut rates by 50 basis points? And she said, I strongly believe in the independence of the Federal Reserve, and I'm not going to tell them what to do.